All of the data entered into Leaders can be visualized using our robust data report capabilities powered by Tableau. Currently, Leaders houses about 200,000 DWI cases from the 2 decades of use across the state. As your agency enters data into the system, it adds to the compiled data, but also provides you and your agency with valuable information that can be used in many ways. The Leaders repository of DWI-related data that has the potential to change local and state deployment of resources using evidence-based or data-driven policing. To find data reports in your Leaders profile, go to the Reports tab on the left and click on Reports. This will open up your data report section with the data that's currently in Leaders. What you see here is filtered for the first few months of this year from the current Leaders agencies. The data is filterable, meaning you can click on any of these tabs and filter out what you want to see. So if I wanted to look at just DWI cases on a Sunday at 12 a.m., it's going to filter out those cases for me. The data then changes based on those cases. For example, the most common date of cases on a Sunday at 12 a.m. is January 5th. I can uncheck it to restore the data. This page also shows other information like additional offenses charged, businesses, cases with an EMS response. Each of these buttons on the left shows us different data types. Next, I'll click on Officer Performance. The data shows how often we're getting search warrants. This also shows reasons for the stop. And again, I can click on any of these things to filter out data. As an example, I will click on Weaving or Fail to Maintain Single Lane. It will show only those cases. The defendant profile shows things about the defendant, age, race, etc. Toxicology will show the average BIC for cases and the percentage of cases that have results. Since this is showing early 2025 cases, there have been no drug toxicology cases entered. Under case trends, you can compare years, so 2023 to 24 in this example. You can change these comparison years and filter it out by your department if you want to. You can also look at top performers of officers and departments from Leaders agencies around the state. Our data can also be used at the field supervision level to ensure officers are completing reports as they should be. This is an example from the officer performance page. Of the 4% of warrants that were not issued, did the judge find no PC? Was it a data entry issue with the warrant and the second warrant was issued? Is the same officer having problems with obtaining search warrants? These are all answers to questions that supervisors can easily find when using Leaders data. This not only allows a supervisor to coach their employees, but it also makes the officer better and the data stronger. This is an example of the data that has been collected from DWI offenses from my old agency for 20 years. Using our data technology allows for appropriate deployment of resources during peak days and hours. Agencies with a DWI unit are able to correctly deploy these officers during peak times and days. It can also be tailored to individual agencies, having the potential to be used to request funding for additional officers based on the DWI problem in their jurisdiction. I'm sure most of you are well aware that requesting additional funding typically must be accompanied by evidence of need. As an administrator for a police agency, I can present this data in an easy-to-understand format to my city manager, mayor, or council when asking for additional funding, or the funding to create a DWI unit in my jurisdiction. Being able to show them the data from your jurisdiction is invaluable evidence of the need to combat the DWI problems in our communities through enforcement. We also have the ability to track IDM and STEP holidays, which are commonly high enforcement days. This includes both agencies that accept state grant money and those which utilize self-funded enforcement activities. The data is no surprise as it confirms what we know to be true using real numbers. Friday and Saturday are the busiest nights for DWI-related offenses. Using data from the Leaders system, agencies can educate citizens and alcohol establishments on DWI-related problems in the community. This can also benefit agencies that have a robust nuisance abatement program. A large part of good nuisance abatement programs are early intervention and education to businesses, residences, etc. of nuisance crimes that are occurring at their location. High-risk alcohol establishments that are consistently marked as the last drink location for DWI offenses may be able to solve a root problem with that establishment. Do they have an employee who is over-serving, etc.? If a local agency has a detailed nuisance abatement program, they can use this data to attempt early intervention or as evidence to support opening a case for nuisance lawsuits at drinking establishments, as TABC violations are considered nuisance crimes. Lastly, TABC can work with local governments to conduct enforcement operations at establishments that are at the top of the list for last drink locations. In addition to the reports in U-Leader's profile, our data analyst can provide you agency with other types of information. This is an example of data pulled from defendant information. Information from our data reports can be used for training officers in and around DWI enforcement. It's common for defense attorneys to downplay intoxication and show the good things about the scenario. Well, my client wasn't uncooperative, right, officer? The data obviously shows that the vast majority of DWI arrests are cooperative. The same can be said of orderly clothing. Most people don't think about intoxicated people being orderly. Instead, they correlate intoxication with drunkenness, what I used to call messy drunks. Not every DWI driver is going to have soiled themselves and be unable to speak. This can help officers enhance their courtroom testimony and ability to combat common defense attorney tactics. It also helps train officers to look beyond initial observations and continue to investigate if there is evidence of intoxication. Another area of training is actual enforcement of DWI offenses. When I first started DWI enforcement, it was common to stop as many vehicles as you can for any and all offenses looking for DWI drivers. Now the focus has become using reasonable suspicion factors of intoxication to find DWI drivers. Looking at the number one reason for stop, you can conclude that the driver was doing something on this list to warrant a member of the public to call about the driving behavior. It remains consistent with the idea of looking for factors of intoxication versus stopping a large number of random vehicles for other violations when conducting DWI enforcement activities. This data can be used in a training environment to highlight reasons for stopping vehicles exhibiting these driving behaviors. As you can see from the selected data, it can be used agency-wide to develop programs, request increases in funding, and train and supervise officers in the field. The more the system is used, the more data is collected and can be tracked and used by all levels of users in the organization. I'm sure you will find new and insightful ways to use Leader's data reporting at your agencies. In our next lesson, we will discuss creating new users and managing current users with Leaders and Comms.